had a brother that died. My oldest brother died.
Bobby?
Yeah. And yeah,
of addiction?
I'm scared of dying. I'm scared of losing my brothers. We need no more deaths in our family.
Why did Bobby DeBarge hide his pain? What terrible secret did he keep until his death? Bobby DeBarge was a talented singer, but his life was full of sadness. He had a voice that touched many people, but behind the music, he suffered.
You know, I was a perfectionist, but he was perfect.
Okay.
You know, and it's like, he never could flaw when he sang.
Drugs, prison, and a painful past followed him. What was the dark truth he carried? And how did it lead to his tragic end? Bobby DeBarge was born in Detroit, Michigan, into a family that was full of both love and pain. His father, Robert DeBarge Sr., was a white man who served in the Army. His mother, Ederline DeBarge, was a black gospel singer who loved music deeply. Music ran in the family, passed down from Ederline's father, who was a choir director and entertainer. Ederline was just 17 years old when she met Robert Sr. She had little experience with relationships and quickly fell for him. But while he seemed charming at first, he was also controlling. Ederline later said that he was extremely jealous. He kept her pregnant for most of their marriage, making sure she was always dependent on him.
I was a very young woman. I was only 17 when I got married, and I started having children when I was 21. Yeah. And it took me like 3 years before I started my family, but once I got started, it was like the never-ending story.
For their children, life with Robert Sr. was even worse. Bobby, one of their sons, suffered the most. His father was violent and abusive, but the most painful thing was that Robert Sr. did things to Bobby that no child should ever have to experience. This caused deep emotional wounds that would never heal. As if that wasn't enough, Robert Sr. had 5 more children with another woman while still married to Ederline. This made things even more painful and confusing for the family. As Bobby got older, he struggled with the pain from his childhood. Around the same time, his parents' toxic marriage ended. But even though they left their father behind, the pain he caused stayed with them. He suffered severe trauma as a child, which deeply affected him. Once he started using them, he could not stop. Bobby later said that his addiction was caused by the abuse he suffered from his father, Robert DeBarge Sr. His father robbed him of his innocence at a very young age. This terrible truth was later confirmed by Bobby's younger brother, Chico DeBarge. Some people believe that Bobby's drug problems were caused by the pressures of fame, but that is not true. Bobby started using illegal substances when he was only 15 years old, long before he became famous. At that time, his music career had not even started. This shows that his addiction was not about fame, but about escaping the pain from his childhood.
Yeah, I had a brother that died. My oldest brother died.
Bobby?
Yeah. And yeah,
of addiction?
I'm scared of dying. I'm scared of losing my brothers. We need no more deaths in our family.
Despite everything, Bobby had a beautiful voice and could play different instruments. He and his younger brother Tommy started performing in local bands, trying to build a future in music. This was the beginning of something big. In 1975, Bobby reconnected with an old schoolmate, Gregory Williams. Gregory also loved music, and together they decided to form a band. They found other talented musicians who shared their dreams. Their hard work paid off when they got a chance to audition for Barry White's band, White Heat. Barry White was a famous musician, and performing with him was a huge opportunity.
Here I am, baby, practice what you preach.
Their audition was a success, and White Heat released an album that same year. It was an important moment in Bobby's career, but things did not last long. Barry White ran into serious tax problems and had to shut down the band in 1976. He kept only one musician, letting the rest go. Bobby's journey in the music industry was not always easy. When he left the band White Heat, his younger brother Tommy DeBarge, Gregory Williams, Philip Ingram, and the other members were left without support. They had been part of White Heat's team, but now they had to find a way to continue on their own. Instead of giving up, they decided to start fresh. They renamed themselves Hot Ice and worked hard to create new music under their new name.
Like Switch is, it derived out of us doing different things instrumentally and musically and vocally, because like we all got different tastes and different styles that we like to do so.
Hot Ice quickly got to work and recorded an album called Paul Mal Groove. One of the standout songs from the album was Please Don't Let Me Go. This song was very special because Bobby DeBarge himself wrote it, sang the lead vocals, and even played the piano. It showed his many musical talents. At first, the album was only released in Poland and Germany, helping Hot Ice gain an international audience. Later, it was released in the United States and Canada through Source Records and MCA Records, allowing more people to hear their music. Many years later, in 2005, Burns Records re-released the album, bringing new attention to Bobby's early work. Even though Hot Ice had success, Bobby felt like his career had not reached its full potential. He wanted more, but at the same time, he was struggling with personal problems. He returned to his hometown of Grand Rapids, Michigan, where his addiction to heroin became worse. This addiction made his life more difficult and affected his ability to focus on music. Meanwhile, Gregory Williams, one of Bobby's former bandmates, stayed in Ohio. He was determined to keep making music and started forming a new group. He brought together Philip Ingram, Tommy DeBarge, and MC Clark, and they recorded a demo. They hoped a major record label would notice them. At that time, Motown Records was one of the biggest names in the music business. Gregory and his group caught their attention, and this led to the creation of a new band called Switch. The name Switch was chosen because the band members could play multiple instruments and switch between them easily. Gregory Williams knew Bobby DeBarge had great talent, so he invited him to join the group. But there was one condition. Bobby had to quit using drugs. Bobby wanted to revive his career, so he agreed. In 1978, Motown Records signed Switch, and both Bobby and his brother Tommy became part of the band. Their first album, produced by Jermaine Jackson, featured a hit song called There'll Never Be. Bobby wrote this song and it became very popular. The album was a big success and even reached gold status, meaning it sold a lot of copies. After this, Switch released another album called Switch 2, which also became a hit. This album featured another song written by Bobby called I Call Your Name.
Call your name, girl.
His songwriting and powerful voice helped Switch become one of the top bands in the industry. Even Berry Gordy of Motown Records called Bobby the most talented artist I have ever signed. Music producer Bernie Livers also admired Bobby's unique voice and effortless talent. Bobby had a special energy and charisma that made him stand out from other artists. Talking about the famous song by Switch, I Call Your Name. Over the years, many people have said that I Call Your Name was inspired by Bobby DeBarge's relationship with LaToya Jackson. Now let's be clear, Bobby and LaToya did date for a while in the late 1970s. That's a fact. But does that mean this song was about her? Some people seem to think so. The song was released in 1979, and Bobby and LaToya were seeing each other around 1977. That timing makes sense. But does timing alone prove that the song was about her? Greg Williams, one of the members of Switch, has spoken about this. He said that he actually wrote most of the lyrics. He also said that he wasn't in love with LaToya. That's interesting, right? Because Bobby was in love with her. So even if Greg wrote most of the words, maybe Bobby's feelings influenced the song in some way. Then there's Jody Sims, another member of Switch. He said that I Call Your Name wasn't about a girl at all. He said it was more of a spiritual thing. So now we have two different stories. What do you think? Could it have been both?
I call your name, girl.
Even if Bobby didn't write the song directly for LaToya, she might have inspired him. Think about it. When you're in love, it affects everything, even the way you sing. Bobby had a way of putting deep emotion into his voice, and maybe LaToya had something to do with that. Just because the words weren't about her doesn't mean the feeling wasn't. Some people believe that when you listen to I Call Your Name, you can hear little hints of LaToya's style in Bobby's singing. It's subtle, but it's there. And then there's the way Switch used harmonies and horns in their music. Could that have inspired LaToya when she worked with producers like Nile Rodgers later on? It's possible. Of course, just because two artists date doesn't mean their styles will blend completely. Bobby and LaToya didn't make music together, but they might have shared ideas behind the scenes. Maybe they talked about their dreams. Maybe they encouraged each other to take risks. Maybe their relationship helped them grow as artists, even if they didn't realize it at the time. By 1981, Switch released their fifth album, Switch 5. However, by this time, Bobby's drug addiction had started causing problems again. Even though he had tried to stay clean at times, he kept falling back into drug use. This created tension between him and his bandmates. It was difficult for the group to work together because of these struggles. While Switch was facing difficulties, Motown Records gave Bobby a chance to go solo. They offered him a solo record deal, and he accepted it. Later, when Bobby released his third solo album in a special way, he decided to include a new version of Queen of My Heart. His brother, L. DeBarge, produced this album and made the song even better. This showed how talented L was in music production, just like Bobby. However, things in the DeBarge family started to change. L. DeBarge and their sister Bunny DeBarge decided to leave the group. They wanted to focus on their own careers. L became very successful as a solo artist, reaching the same level of fame as Bobby. Meanwhile, Bobby was struggling with his solo career, so he decided to reunite with his other siblings. Together, they created a new version of DeBarge and released an album called Bad Boys. They hoped this would bring back the success they once had. On the Bad Boys album, Bobby and his younger brother, James DeBarge, shared lead vocals. This seemed like a good opportunity for Bobby to rebuild his career. But Bobby's drug problem did not go away. It followed him into this new group and made things difficult. As time went on, Bobby's drug use got worse. It was no longer just about using drugs, he started selling them too. In 1988, Bobby, his brother Chico DeBarge, and 4 other people were arrested for drug trafficking. This means they were caught trying to move and sell illegal drugs. Bobby's drug problem had grown into something even more dangerous. He was not only hurting himself, but he was also breaking the law. They wanted to take it from Los Angeles to Michigan, but the police caught them before they could do it. Chico and another person were caught at the airport in Detroit with packages of cocaine. After they were arrested, they had to go to court. Bobby was given a 5-year prison sentence and Chico was sentenced to 6 years. This was a huge setback for him and it marked one of the lowest points in his life. While Bobby was in prison, he received very sad news. His life had already taken a bad turn, but now things became even worse. His troubles with drugs had destroyed his music career, his freedom, and his future.
Yeah, I had a brother that died. My oldest brother died.
Bobby?
Yeah, and yeah,
Of addiction?
I'm scared of dying. I'm scared of losing my brothers. We don't need no more deaths in our family.
By 1988, things had gone from bad to worse. Bobby and his brother, Chico DeBarge, were arrested along with 4 other people for trafficking illegal drugs. At first, Bobby was just using drugs, but over time, he became more involved in the drug business. What started as a personal habit grew into something much bigger and more dangerous. He was no longer just using drugs, he was helping to sell and transport them. This was a serious crime, and the law caught up with him. The police arrested Bobby, Chico, and 3 others in Grand Rapids, Michigan. After going through legal proceedings, they were found guilty. Bobby was sentenced to 5 years in prison, while Chico was given 6 years. This was a turning point in their lives. Their arrest and conviction led to the breakup of the DeBarge group in 1989. The group that had once been full of hope and talent was now falling apart because of Bobby's mistakes. According to reports, Bobby and Chico were planning to smuggle a large amount of drugs from Los Angeles to Michigan. They had over 2 pounds of cocaine and thought they could get away with it. But they were caught at the Detroit Metropolitan Airport when police found the drugs during a passenger inspection. Chico and another person were caught red-handed with the packages of cocaine. this was the final straw. Their music careers were already suffering, and now they were facing serious time in prison. Prison was a tough experience for Bobby. He had time to reflect on his life and express regret for his choices. He wanted to change, but the damage had already been done. When he was finally released, the industry had moved on. The stigma of being a convicted drug dealer followed him everywhere, making it hard for him to get back on his feet. He tried to rebuild his life, but it was not easy. He recorded and performed again, proving that he still had the passion for his craft. However, his health was in serious trouble. In the late 1980s, before he went to prison, Bobby had contracted HIV. This later turned into AIDS, and his condition got worse. Even though he was very sick, he worked hard on his final album, It's Not Over. He was determined to finish it, but sadly, he passed away before he could see its release. The album was later released independently and became a success, showing that Bobby's music still touched people's hearts.
You know, I was a perfectionist, but he was perfect.
Okay.
You know, and it's like, he never could flaw when he sang.
After Bobby passed away, rumors about the DeBarge family's struggles with substance abuse started to surface. It became clear that Bobby was not the only one who had problems with drugs. His siblings, including Chico, Bunny, Elle, Tommy, and James, also battled addiction. It seemed like the whole family was trapped in a cycle that they couldn't escape. Drugs took over their lives and created many hardships for them. Bobby's sister, Bunny DeBarge, once spoke about the struggles he faced. She said, "We all had our struggles, but Bobby's were the hardest." His addiction took a heavy toll on him and the whole family. Bobby battled substance abuse for years, and it affected his music career and personal life. Bobby's brother, James DeBarge, also talked about how special Bobby was. He said, "Bobby had this incredible presence. When he walked into a room, you felt it. On stage, he was mesmerizing." Bobby had a certain magic about him. He didn't just sing or play music, he felt it deep in his soul, and that passion was clear every time he performed. He had the kind of voice that could make people stop and listen, and his talent on multiple instruments made him a true musical genius.
But it's like every time he opened up his mouth, it was always right the first time. And it sounded so good and it felt so good. And I was like, and he was my mentor, and he was the one that was teaching me.
Their mother, Ederline DeBarge, once spoke about her son Elle's struggles. She said that the music industry was very hard on him. He just couldn't deal with all the fake people in the industry. He couldn't handle being taken advantage of. She also revealed that Motown had taken all of Elle's publishing rights, and they were still making money from his songs. This showed how much the DeBarge family suffered, not only from personal struggles, but also from business deals that didn't work in their favor. Chico DeBarge also talked about how much their father affected Bobby and his siblings. Their father, Robert DeBarge Sr., had a negative impact on the whole family. Chico said that Bobby carried a lot of pain and bitterness from his childhood. That pain was reflected in his music. When you listened to Bobby sing, you could hear the sadness in his voice. He put all his emotions into his music, and that's what made him stand out.
I got to find my way, gotta know what to say.
Bobby DeBarge was married to a woman named Terry DeBarge. They met when Terry was only 15 years old and Bobby was in his early 30s. Even though there was a big age gap, they fell in love and enjoyed each other's company. After dating for some time, they decided to get married. Their wedding took place in 1990. For a while, they lived a happy life together as husband and wife. However, their marriage did not last long. Bobby DeBarge passed away just 6 years after they got married. Bobby and Terry had 2 sons together. Their names are Christian DeBarge and Bobby DeBarge Jr. Christian is now married to an Asian woman and they have children. Christian loves creating cartoons and anime. Bobby Jr. followed in his father's footsteps and became a singer. He has a falsetto voice, just like his dad. He makes music with his cousins, including Christinia, Andrew, and Eldra. Through his children and family, Bobby DeBarge's musical legacy continues even years after his passing. Bobby DeBarge had a complicated love life. While he was married to Terry, rumors spread that he was also in a relationship with a man named Tony. They lived together in a condo in California for 3 years. Sadly, Tony also passed away from AIDS. There were also rumors that Bobby had a relationship with LaToya Jackson, the sister of Michael Jackson. Some people believe that his song I Call Your Name was inspired by her. After Bobby's death, Terry moved on with her life. She became a well-known producer in Hollywood. She has worked on many TV programs and movies, mostly about her late husband. In 2008, she helped produce Unsung, a show about influential R&B and soul singers. She also worked on a movie called Overlooked in the same year. In 2009, she produced the Bobby DeBarge Story, which told the life story of her husband.
How y'all gonna have a party without me? Y'all must have forgot. I am the party.
There were also serious allegations against their father. Bobby's ex-wife made claims about how he treated their children. When asked about it, Robert DeBarge Sr. said, "She has a right to her opinion. I don't think I was at fault." He tried to downplay the accusations, but many family members confirmed that he was not a good father. Also, Bobby's troubled upbringing also involved controversial behavior toward his siblings. In an episode of Life Changers with Dr. Drew, James DeBarge opened up about how Bobby had hurt him. This revelation shocked many people because, despite their struggles, Bobby and James had always been close. It showed just how troubled their family life was behind closed doors. The DeBarge family appeared successful on the outside, but they were dealing with deep emotional wounds. El DeBarge paid tribute to both Tommy and Bobby after Tommy's passing. He described Tommy as a loving and gentle soul who was deeply loved by his family. El said that now both Bobby and Tommy were reunited in the afterlife. He also spoke about the heavy hearts left behind and how hard it was to accept their loss. Their deaths were reminders of the many struggles they had faced throughout their lives. Despite everything, Bobby's influence on R&B music cannot be denied. He was a true pioneer, and his voice will never be forgotten. His music continues to inspire new generations, and his legacy lives on through his son and his family. Even though his life was filled with pain, his talent remains a shining light in the world of music.